Let's continue looking at yesterday's Cosatu Workers' Day rally. This is where President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his capacity as leader of the ANC, had to leave, apparently in a police nyala, as workers heckled and told him basically to go away. The ANC and government's response to their plight was exactly the nub of the issue, that they had been ignored. Let's speak now to Cosatu's president, Zingiswa Losi, who joins us via the virtual platform from here in Johannesburg. Ms. Losi, thank you very much for your time. I want to start this conversation with what we have been showing viewers since morning when this show started. You have people in Rustenburg who are basically going through rubbish in order to pick up bottles, whatever it is that they can take to go and sell, and then they make a little income so that they can buy bread. You go to KwaZulu-Natal, people are using one source of water, and it's a small pipe, where people are now forced to collect water as a result of the collapsed infrastructure that clearly had not been maintained. Yes, we understand as well that the issues of climate change are here, but the bigger story in KwaZulu-Natal has been the allegation that infrastructure there, water infrastructure, has not been well maintained. And now we're seeing the results of that. Can you really argue with Neil Froneman that South Africa is a failed state?
Well, I did not hear your interview with Neil Froneman, and I guess that's the boss of Sibanye, Still Waters, where workers are demanding a 1,000 rand wage increase when the company itself says it is unable to. And I wonder if you had an opportunity to ask Neil, how much is he begging home when he's unable to give workers a mere 1,000 rand increase, which of course, by them not being able to change the lives of workers in Rustenburg, in where they are located, their production, leads to the crisis that you are mentioning of people picking their lives from the rubbish bin. And which this is a challenge that we have always raised as a federation at the level of neglect, that it is government and business that must ensure that what they had promised in terms of the job summit and investment summit is being realized in this country. So as labor and as community, we are doing our level best in ensuring that we stick to the agreements that we have reached at the level of neglect. But business, for an example, you will recall that about 4 or 5 years ago, when we had a job summit, business said they're going to create the mining industry 10,000 jobs in the next 10 years, but they started retrenching 10,000 workers. Now, were they creating the 10,000 jobs by retrenching 10,000 workers and employ them as casuals? This is the plight that big business continue to put workers under. So Neil can blame government, but as organized labor, we say it is both government and business that are also failing the workers in this country.
And what responsibility do you take as a labor movement, one of the oldest and biggest in the country, or perhaps biggest is actually too ironic a word to use? Some people saying that you probably are an image of what you used to be. The understanding is that you had promised that there would be 22,000 people that would attend that ill-fated May Day rally yesterday, but that was a far cry from 22,000.
Indeed, the stadium takes 44,000 and you can only accommodate 22,000 as a result of that. The trade unions did send out buses, but we also understand and appreciated the fact that it is a long weekend. Workers have been working throughout, and when they have an opportunity to be with their families and travel from one province to another, that is the opportunity that they have. When they choose to celebrate the Workers' Day in a different way. That's their choice that they have made. But I can tell you now, workers were at the stadium, they were in attendance, and others were even outside the stadium because we started very late. There were security issues that had to be dealt with before, and without those issues being addressed, the security detail at the stadium, in terms of their protocols, would not allow us to open the gates and allow workers and everyone in to come in without being properly searched. So we had to deal with logistical issues and administrative issues before the stadium were to be open. Hence, it led to us starting very late. But if you were paying attention to the outside of the stadium, workers came in and attended their May Day rally. But for you to say that we are a shadow of ourselves, I will argue differently. We are not. Truly, not by any chance. You would see and notice, if you do pay attention to what we have achieved as the Federation in the shortest period of time of COVID, where we have managed to change the lives of workers in South Africa, not only that of Cosatu. We are the federation that went to Netlec, of course, working with other two federations, where we put policy interventions that had to ensure that the lives of workers are not worse off during COVID-19, when all of us were collapsing at that stage, not understanding how we're going to deal with this pandemic. But Cosatu put together policy proposal and interventions which had led to workers receiving the 63 billion that was released from the UIF, enabling 5.5 million workers to be able to put food on the table. We, as the Federation, are in discussion and in Parliament now waiting for Treasury to sign off so that by 2023 workers can be able to withdraw from their pension fund in order for them to be able to sustain their livelihoods. We have also ensured that domestic workers in South Africa are equalized and are paid at 23 rands an hour, which initially workers were at 6 rands an hour. 6 million workers in this country have been moved up to 23 rands an hour. That's the place that we are playing at as a federation at a policy level, Toli, not in the workplace, because in the workplace you have trade unions that are there that negotiate on behalf of workers on workplace agreements. But at the level of policy, that's where the federation comes in and make intervention. So we have not, by any chance, could really say that we are a failed federation. I would argue differently, because we have a lot of good stories to tell in terms of how the lives of workers have been turned around, particularly in the short space of time. Of course, Oli, we have said May Day is a day of reflection, reflecting on the plight of workers beyond policy statements, saying in the true sense how our workers' lives turned out to be. We are speaking about workers that are being retrenched in the private sector, in the state-owned entities. We are talking about the VAT increases that we've seen in the last 5 years. We are talking about the rising food of petrol and food prices in South Africa. We are talking about the cut budget that was taken out of CCMA, which also cripples the cases of workers when they go for arbitration and consolidation at the level of the CCMA. The attack on bargaining council, both in the public and in the private sector. The fact that government has reneged on a signed wage agreement in the public sector, which led to the private sector, because they are also not angels, they have also reneged from their own signed agreement in the private sector. The fact that there are workers only in municipalities that did not receive their salaries is a call for concern, and we continue to engage through our unions and through the federation at the political level on all those matters that I've just mentioned.
So in summary then, you've said a mouthful. In summary, what happened yesterday to the ANC president, he deserved what was coming to him as leader of the party, but broadly as leader of the alliance.
Only it did not happen to the president of the ANC on his own. I must clarify this. I was there at the stadium. Workers of Sibanye, from Sibanye Steel Waters, when we came in at the stadium, they were singing as all workers were singing. We could not make a difference on which workers are singing and what are they singing about. We went and the president said, let us go and greet those workers. We went, we greeted, we saw the placards. The placards were directed to the Mr. Neil that you spoke with before this interview. They were directed at him. And those workers demanded that the president of the ANC must come and address them. The president stopped speaking at the rally and went to address those workers. Upon him addressing them, and they were happy at that particular time with what the president has promised on how he is going to intervene, those workers went and left. Then there was a group of workers who are alleged to be coming from Nihau and municipal workers.
Ms. Losi, I'm sorry to interrupt you. In order for this conversation to move forward, I'm going to sum up what happened yesterday with these words. And you are doing that very summary. Simply put, Ms. Losi, the workers, at least some of the workers, that caused the president to leave the stadium are the same workers who work at a Kloof shaft, which is the very shaft where he says he marked his first ballot in 1994 as founding general secretary of the NUM. When you couple that with the fact that he is the same person that the workers blamed for why some workers in the public sector could not receive their salary increases, that tells you about the social distance between what you say you are as leaders of society and workers and by extension citizens of this country. Take responsibility and say you have failed the workers, have you not?
Koli, it becomes difficult when you want me to agree to what you are saying as your observation. I'm in the Federation. We deal with these issues on a day-to-day basis. And I'm saying workers there had a right to vent their anger, their frustration. For an example, Koli, you must also accept the fact that those workers from Sibanye had no issues with, for example, the president of the ANC, because they had issues with Neil that you had an interview with. And those workers said, we want the president to come and address us. He went and he addressed them. They were happy with what they were discussing with the president. Now, there are public sector workers who are not happy with the 2018 wage agreement that was reneged upon by the government of the ANC. And that one, we have always said, it is what is going to haunt the ANC. Because you can't, as a ruling party, and particularly the African National Congress, reneged from a signed agreement, because you are setting a wrong precedence even to the private sector.
But that's what you're refusing to acknowledge, that the president of the ANC got what he deserved yesterday.
Koli, if you want to put it in your own words, perhaps you are allowed to do so, but allow me to express it in how I see it. If we're saying the same thing, it's okay. Perhaps allow me to express it in the way that I feel it is okay for me to say it. And I'm saying to you, the public sector workers, and I've said it even at the stadium when I was addressing, it's a pity that the media chose what was being chaotic, and you missed an opportunity to play the message of Cosatu, which was dealing with the issues of workers in the private sector and the issues of workers in the public sector, and also warning the African National Congress. Before even the president was not allowed to speak, I raised those issues, Koli, in my own input when I spoke in the May Day rally. It's a pity that you chose to focus on what seemed to be chaotic than the message that I was delivering, because had you done that with your journalists on the ground, you would have understood and appreciated that Cosatu has not shined away in raising the critical issues that are confronting workers and confronting the party at that stage and the SN and the ANC leadership that were there. So, yeah, it is what it is, but we are saying it was the correct platform for workers to vent their anger, because by us meeting on the 1st of May, we are there to assess the progress and also assess the lack that exists in taking forward the issues of workers.
All right, so let's move the conversation forward. I'm going to now go back to what I said earlier, that the relevance of Cosatu and its unions is perhaps a thing of the past. Why am I saying this? I spoke to a leader, a former leader of the NUM yesterday, who said these words to me, that shop stewards, when a strike is on, shop stewards do not sleep. They engage the company management up until a resolution is found. Why is this relevant? This strike is getting into the third month. Which union am I talking about within Cosatu? The NUM. Can you genuinely argue that the NUM is alive when one of its former leaders, I'm now talking about Frans Baleni, who told a radio station recently, and he said these words, that as a founding member, he is concerned about the state of the NUM, and that is because intellectual capacity has disappeared. Can you trust the leadership of the NUM right now that they could actually stand up to Neil Froneman and his executives and get workers what they want?
The leadership of NUM is elected by members of NUM in a Congress of NUM. I can't tell you whether those leaders are right or wrong. They are elected by their members. The issue of shop steward and not being in touch with members, it is the issue that I raised when I addressed the May Day. I said in the May Day rally yesterday that it is important for us as leaders, for shop steward, because I always say shop steward are a first line of defense between workers and management, because they are elected in a workplace. That's where the problems of workers emanate from. If you have weak shop steward, you are going to have a weak workplace and workers that are going to be taken advantage of. And I called upon in my message yesterday for shop stewards to be with workers at all material times. I called for leaders of unions from the local to the national to be with members at all material times, to understand the worker issues, because if we do, then we would not be having this situation. But then to say the trade unions in the Federation Cosatu have failed, it is a bit of an exaggeration. Why I'm saying so? It is because there are unions in the Federation who are doing extremely well in all areas where they are organizing. So you can't then, by measuring what happened yesterday, conclude that this federation is failing with its affiliates without appreciating the successes.
All right.
But of course, only we know and we understand that when the media sees an opportunity, you always cling on what is negative and you forget about all the gains that workers are celebrating, that they are as a result of this federation, Cosatu, not any other federation.
Let's pause there for a moment. We are going to continue. Just one last topic I'd like to pick up on with the president of Cosatu. I hope you still have time for me.
I do.
All right. Thank you very much. We continue in a moment. You're watching Newsfeed AM. If you're just joining us, we are in conversation with the president of Cosatu, Zingiswa Losi, who is with me. And we are wrapping up this discussion, Ms. Losi, and it's a topic that has been spoken about time and time again in the past, but I'm hoping for a different answer, hopefully. What is the benefit of Cosatu being in the so-called tripartite alliance?
We've seen the benefits, Goli, on a number of policy interventions. And so, as you say, it has always been spoken about and we have always responded. The answer will remain the same. The national leadership of Cosatu does not decide that Cosatu is going to be in alliance with the ANC. It has never done that. Not in my tenure, not in the tenure before mine. We go to a Congress. Members of Cosatu discuss politics, discuss socio-economic issues. They debate international politics. they debate organizational issues. They take decision. Upon making their own assessment, it becomes a decision, which as national office bearers, we are expected to carry forward. We are expected to pronounce on those decisions. Whether Cosatu is going to break away from the alliance, that is a decision that the Congress of Cosatu in September must decide. And when that decision is made, an incoming leadership of Cosatu after Congress will then have to run with that decision of the Federation. We do not exist outside the decisions of the Federation. That is why, you keep asking, you keep getting the same answer, because we have no right to change that decision unless the Central Executive Committee decides so. But also the CEC cannot decide and change a Congress resolution. We'll have to go to Congress, we'll have to make an assessment, we'll have to make a decision upon that. So you will continue to get the same answer, but we continue to make the assessment as we move forward. That is why we're able to say these are the issues that we are not happy with. These are the issues that we are content with, and what is it that we need to do with what we are not happy with within the alliance itself, with the ANC directly, with the Communist Party, and then workers must decide on how we move forward.
And so it's not a mistake that unions or labor movements must align themselves with political parties. You see that as beneficial?
Only workers see that as beneficial. It is workers that make a decision. Look, Oli, I've always asked this question. For those federations that accuses Cosatu, actually there's only one, that has stood up and accused Cosatu of sleeping with the NN. And I asked a question in one interview with them, that where now who is not in alliance with any political party, or at least the ANC, what is it that you have attained and achieved for workers? The fact that you are not in alliance with any political party, there's nothing. There's nothing. The gains that workers have achieved, it is through our alliance with the ANC to some extent, and there are frustrations again within those relationships with the ANC, which we continue to speak about. It is Cosatu, this federation, that will go out on the street, apply for Section 77 at Netlek, and say we are going on a national day of action because we are not happy with 1, 2, 3, and we will pose those issues to the government of the ANC and to the private sector. It is this federation. It is this federation that will call upon the ANC that we are in alliance with and say, we are not the African National Congress. We are an independent organization. That is why we are able to voice out our issues against the leadership of the ANC when we are not happy with it. We don't shy away from that because we represent our own constituency that elected us in our own Congress.
All right. And so, in summary, therefore, you will go with this ANC into oblivion when it is finally taken out by the people of this country, when it comes to the vote. I don't know which particular vote will determine that, but slowly, surely, it is headed towards that. You are going to die with this ANC, which is asked the question, where were you when the coffers of this country were handed on a silver platter to a migrant Indian family? You're willing to go down with this ANC?
The problem, Chloe, is that every time I answer you, you go back to as if we did not have a conversation just now. The next general election, you know, they are going to happen after, in 2024. Where in 2022, Cosatu is going to its National Congress in September. Workers of the Federation Cosatu will meet, they will gather, they will make a decision on what they think is appropriate and correct for them. As leaders, we cannot pronounce differently from what workers have directed us to do. And I said to you, come Congress in September, you will be there, Goli. Workers will be debating. We have even opened our discussions in Congress. Media is allowed, you know that. So wait for workers to go to their Congress. They will debate. They will take a decision whether they are saying Cosatu must remain in the alliance, whether workers are saying, no, 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 let's go out of this alliance. That decision, when it is made, when it is a resolution, the leadership that will emerge from that Congress will have to run with that decision and all other resolutions that would have. So no one said we're going to die with the ANC. We're saying Cosatu is going to its constitutional meeting in September. They will make a decision, workers. That's the workers' parliament. Then any leader that emerges from that Congress will have to pronounce as such.
All right. Finally then, I'm letting you go now, I promise. And so you maintain, though, at the same time, that it is beneficial for unions to align themselves politically. So what you're saying in summary is that in the not-so-distant future, NUMSA will be knocking back at Cosatu's doors, is it?
NUMSA is going to its Congress. We don't know what NUMSA is going to decide in its Congress. But I can tell you that in the 13th National Congress of Cosatu 4 years ago, Cosatu took a resolution that we must unite the workers in this country, including speaking to those that were once in the federation to come back to the federation. So we are awaiting. We don't know what NUMSA is going to make a decision in their Congress, but NUMSA is going to its Congress. Once, if they do take that decision, Cosatu is ready to have a conversation and move forward with that. We have accepted many unions. Others were coming from SAFTU. They came to Cosatu. We accepted them as trade unions in the federation. We continue to do so because we are directed by our own resolution of the 13th National Congress.
That's the president of Cosatu, Zingiswa Losi. Thank you very much for your time.